Welcome to this deep dive. We're digging in some really interesting sources today to pull out the key ideas for you.
That's right.
And today we're really getting into a fascinating Psychology Today piece. It looks at these connections between dopamine, intelligence, and, well, sex drive.
Yeah, it's Hamid Zan's article, and it cleverly pulls together ideas from Daniel Lieberman's book, The Molecule of More, and also Sex at Dawn by Christopher Ryan and Cacilda Jethá, plus a bunch of other studies.
Right.
And our aim really is to try and map out these, potential brain links between things that seem quite separate aspects of being human and look at some of the, paradoxes that kind of pop up.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Like, could the exact same brain chemistry that pushes our creativity, our big ideas, could that also be lighting the fire for our desires, shaping our relationships?
That's a good question.
Okay, so let's start with dopamine then. The article really puts it center stage.
Absolutely, yeah. Lieberman, in The Molecule of More, he really hammers this home. Dopamine is just, crucial for the brain's reward pathway. It's tied to that rush we get, not just from sex, but also when we're chasing down goals, achieving things that matter to us.
So it's not purely the enjoyment in the moment then?
Not entirely, no. Lieberman really stresses that dopamine is the motivator. It's what makes us seek out new stuff, new pleasures, new goals.
Oh, okay.
Once we get there, sure, other chemicals kick in. They help sustain the feeling, the experience.
Right.
But then, almost like clockwork, dopamine kind of nudges us again, pushes us towards the next new thing, the next bit of more. It's often more about the wanting than the liking, if that makes sense. Other neurochemicals handle more of that satisfaction feeling.
Yeah. It's like this endless treadmill of wanting the next hit, the next novelty. Okay, so building on that, the article then shifts gears a bit, bringing in Sex at Dawn and this evolutionary viewpoint on relationships, which is quite different.
It really is. What's pretty compelling there is the argument Ryan and Jethá make. They look at anthropological evidence and basically suggest humans might naturally lean more towards non-monogamy.
Really?
Yeah, they argue that for a huge chunk of our evolutionary past, our ancestors probably had more, let's say, fluid sexual arrangements, less permanent pairings.
But it definitely bumps up against a lot of modern ideas about relationships.
It certainly does. Sex at Dawn basically puts forward that our current, often strict idea of monogamy is maybe a more recent cultural layer, and possibly one that doesn't perfectly mesh with our underlying biology. They even go so far as to suggest that these cultural rules around, sexual exclusivity could actually cause problems, feelings of shame, guilt, maybe even leading to things like sexual dysfunction or just feeling unsatisfied.
Wow, okay. That's definitely something to chew on. So then the article moves into intelligence and sex, and this is where it gets, really puzzling.
It does, yeah. The research they point to, especially a study from back in 2000 by Halpern and others, it actually showed a negative link between how intelligent someone is in their teens and when they first start having partnered sex.
So smarter teens start later. That feels backwards somehow.
It does seem counterintuitive, yeah. The researchers floated a few possible reasons.
Like what?
Well, maybe more intelligent teens are just busier, more involved in school clubs, structured activities. Maybe they stick closer to conventional rules, or maybe they just sort of have fewer chances because they're focused elsewhere.
Right, so it's not necessarily about less interest, maybe just different priorities or timing.
That seems to be the thinking. It's more about the focus of their drive. They found internal stuff like motivation, how they make decisions, that seemed more important for that group.
Okay.
But, and this is the twist, the picture changes when you look at people who are older.
Ah, okay, because I remember reading that it flips later on, a positive link.
Exactly. Other studies suggest that in older adults, higher intelligence actually correlates with more self-reported sexual desire. So that's the paradox, right? Highly intelligent people might want sex more, even if they started having it later or maybe less frequently when younger. It makes you wonder, could lifelong learning or thinking keep those desire pathways active? It's an interesting thought.
Okay, so this is the million-dollar question then. How does dopamine potentially bridge this gap? Explain this weird pattern.
Right, and this is where the article proposes a really neat potential explanation. The core idea is that the dopamine system could be the key. Research has found links between specific dopamine receptor genes, DRD2 is one they mention, and things like creative thinking, being interested in art. DRD2 is just, one type of docking station for dopamine in the brain, and variations matter.
Interesting. So the same kind of brain wiring that maybe fuels intellectual curiosity could also be tied into our basic desires.
That's the implication. And what's more, other studies have connected variations in a different dopamine receptor gene, the D4 receptor this time, to stuff like infidelity, maybe being more sexually promiscuous.
Okay.
So the D4 receptor is another dopamine docking spot, and variations there seem to nudge certain behaviors. Taken together, it really points towards dopamine and its receptors having a hand in both creativity and libido, like two sides of the same coin almost.
Different ways the same sort of drive manifests.
Okay.
The article also talks about this idea of the genius brain
Mhm.
and how that relates to social life,
Yeah.
sometimes meaning more isolation.
Yeah, Lieberman points out that for some really intelligent people, especially those with a super active dopamine reward system, they get locked into this relentless chase for big goals.
Right.
Achieve one thing, and boom, the dopamine system immediately pushes them to find the next challenge, the next novel pleasure. It's that constant hunger for more again.
And that intense focus can maybe crowd out other things like socializing.
That's kind of the idea, yeah. The article brings up figures like Newton, apparently known for being quite isolated, just totally absorbed in his work. It hints that maybe there's a trade-off sometimes. That intense drive for intellectual goals might leave less energy, or maybe just less interest, in lots of social interaction.
And then there's this term sapiosexuality, being attracted to intelligence. How does that fit in? Does the article get into why intelligence might be attractive? Is it about, I don't know, seeing someone as capable, or is it linked back to this dopamine stuff?
It touches on it. The suggestion is that if intelligent people often have this higher libido, as some research suggests, and other people find intelligence attractive, well, maybe there are evolutionary knock-on effects, potential advantages in reproduction perhaps. But yeah, it's definitely flagged as something needing more solid research.
Gotcha. Speculative, but interesting. Okay, one of the, frankly, wildest parts of the article for me was how it connects creativity, dreaming, even psychosis and sexual desire, with dopamine sitting right in the middle of it all.
Yeah, that's where Lieberman's ideas get really, really intriguing. He basically argues dopamine is at this crossroads, linking all these things that seem worlds apart.
Wow.
There's even evidence, apparently, that certain gene variations that increase the risk for schizophrenia, they're also found more often in highly creative people or in their families.
That is quite a connection to think about. Really surprising.
It is. And the article also notes that just normal imagination, normal dreaming, which dopamine heavily influences, might actually help talented people solve problems. Like the brain's just exploring stuff without the usual constraints.
But it sounds like a very delicate balance is needed.
Exactly that. If the dopamine levels get out of whack, it could potentially fuel both incredible creativity and mental health issues. You could sort of picture the brain's reward system going into overdrive, misinterpreting signals, maybe blurring the lines between what's real and what's imagined or dreamed, which is a hallmark of schizophrenia when it's extreme.
So it's a really fine-tuned system we're talking about. Now, the article does make sure to say, look, these links are fascinating, they seem plausible, but we don't have the full picture yet.
Oh, absolutely. It's crucial to remember that. While the evidence points towards correlations between dopamine, sex drive, creativity, intelligence, the actual nuts and bolts of how it all works together, it's complex, really complex. And we definitely need more research to, properly untangle it all.
Right. So if we're wrapping up this deep dive, the big takeaways seem to be dopamine is huge, driving us towards both intellectual goals and sexual desire. That weird paradox with intelligence and sex. Maybe higher desire, but later start dopamine might be the key there too. And those evolutionary ideas definitely give you pause for thought about relationships.
For sure. And thinking about these shared brain pathways, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? If we understood our own dopamine system better, could that help us, find a better balance between our drive for knowledge, for making things, and for connecting with others? Maybe there's a kind of, neurochemical sweet spot in chasing different kinds of newness in life.
That's a really great final thought to leave people with. Definitely something to mull over. We hope you found this deep dive thought-provoking and maybe see some connections in your own life. Thanks for joining us.